Got it.
Yo, yo, yo. Good morning. Welcome to Suitman Productions. We're having our usual lateness. You know, we've got black people on this show, so running late per usual, right? But the funny part is we're here. That's what matters, right? We're missing a guy, but we've got a great guest for you, and we've got our two friends from across the water. So I think that's one of the most important things of all, right? But good morning. I'm here. I'm dressed. I'm actually the suit man today, so you get a little privilege of seeing me all fancy. But
for our audio only listeners, Dante is wearing a candy apple red blazer with a matching tie with some silver accents. His hair is all done did. He's looking fancy, like he's going to interview for a more prestige job. But we can't do that in Seattle. That's not a thing. We're not allowed to have that privilege because we're just too awesome. And the world is like, no.
I see Janejira is awake tonight.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, welcome our panelists, Janejira and BDSM Bear.
Hello, it's me. I'm back. I'm in the galaxy because my head's always in space. How's everybody doing? I
see
run
you've
a
had too much
potato
caffeine.
chip blog where I review potato chips that I like, give you my unsolicited opinion, and also give you a brief history lesson on the potato chip company that you absolutely didn't need.
I think that whole intro could fit under that, but I'm just saying. Anyways, up next, getting ready for the UK Grammys, we have Variety D. Say hello, Variety D.
Oh, I love it. You said UK Grammys. Yes, I'm getting ready for the British Academy, which everyone knows is BAFTAs. Oh my gosh, I am baffled and I'm trying to dry my toes. Yes. Oh, women multitask. Yes, we do. And happy late Valentine's, you guys.
Oh yeah.
Happy Saturday, right?
That day.
And last but not least, we got our guest for the day. Give it up for BlueGlasses Girl.
Woo! Yeah.
How you doing this morning, BlueGlasses?
Oh, I'm great, thank you. I have really missed BDSM Bear, so I'm really glad to see them back.
Yay!
I missed all of you, but I especially missed BDSM Bear.
Get your own
So glad to see
BDSM
they're
Bear
still
if you
here.
really want to. You know that, right?
That's true, actually. That may happen. I've got a pirate bear. I could bring that next time.
Ooh, a bear party.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good fun. That doesn't mean we have to be bear, right? Just checking, like it's still clothed.
It doesn't have to be a bear. It can just be a bear.
We
Okay.
bears.
That's his homonym, right? A BAREBEA. Never mind. Fuck you guys. Get ready for my word
I'm
joke.
dyslexic. I will just plead the fifth. I don't know the difference.
So we'll jump into it. You're BlueGlasses Girl, right? And why are you BlueGlasses Girl? There's a reason for that. Tell us.
Yeah, so actually I am non-binary anyway, so I'm technically not a BlueGlasses girl in that sense, but I chose it because it was a play on the phrase of that girl with the blue glasses, because obviously people assume my gender, being born a woman, you know, and presenting as a woman as it would appear. So when I went to get my glasses, these are Erling's glasses, or some people call them just tinted lenses. And basically people who are neurodivergent often have a condition called Erling syndrome, which is nothing to do with your eyes at all, which is a bit of a confusion. People think it's because you're wearing eyewear, it is through your eyes, but it's actually a neurological condition. And what happens is light goes into your brain, and the MRIs have shown that essentially your brain shakes and vibrates when the light goes in. And so it makes it very difficult to sort of walk properly or read black text on white, which it always is when people have got menus or printing things and things like that. So I bought these special lenses and they help me sleep better. They stop me getting migraines. They're class of mobility aid so I can get around well and read things better. Even though I have dyslexia, so my reading's still a bit so-so. So when I started wearing them, I gained quite a lot of attention. You know, people staring at me. A lot of people were quite negative about it. Some people thought I was being a bit like, oh, she's out in sunglasses. I went to like a bar once, and some people were like mocking me in the bar, going, "Ooh, look at her wearing her sunglasses inside. She's a show off." Because they look quite dark. But actually, what was interesting is before I wore these, I did wear sunglasses because the light used to really hurt my brain. So, and then other people were really positive and just go, "Hey, they're cool. Oh, who's that person who came to this event? Oh, blue glasses girl, some girl with blue glasses." So I thought, right, I'm just going to have that now as my as like my alter ego, really, blue glasses girl.
No, so you're blue glasses them person, not
Yeah,
girl.
I should really be blue glasses they. And I was thinking this week, like, should I change it? I don't use the they pronoun anyway, because I leave that for my trans siblings. I prefer Z and Z as my preferred pronouns, but I'm cool with she and her as well. That's fine. But yeah, so like I was thinking, like, but it doesn't have the same ring to us, does it? Blue glasses, not really. But it's something I was thinking about.
And also being in America, the zer would throw everybody else off. We don't,
Yeah,
as you like to say, as much Z, not Z. I've heard.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Oh, blue glasses Z has kind of a nice ring to it, actually, though. I quite like that.
There you
That's the
go.
point. I might found something new there, Dante. I like that.
Right? Hey, that'll be $25. That'll be.
This is a podcast where people come up with new branding names.
I am.
know.
I have a website at the minute, which is blueglassesgirl.com, but I am going to rebrand it and relaunch it because I'm not happy with some of the content. So I need to sort of maybe have a play around with that. And I was thinking about the name, but I have bought that domain, so I'm probably just going to leave it like that for a little while.
And what do you have on your website on Blue Glasses Girl?
Oh, at the moment, I just have like artwork and different things that I've been doing, but because I want to like do more like public speaking as a disability activist around these topics, around neurodiversity, and around just the lived experience of being a disabled person, really. So I want to change it a little bit because since we saw each other last, I've been doing a little bit of speaking and talks, and I want some more images up of that kind of thing that I've been doing.
That makes sense. What do you do most of your talks on?
Well, for example, this week I'm talking for the health service in my city. So they're having something called Pride in Health, because obviously it's LGBTQIA plus History Month. And so I'm talking about just my lived experience of using mental health services in my city, and like how it's different for me as an LGBTQIA plus identifying person that would be somebody who isn't.
What have you found? I mean, I'm very naive to all of this, obviously.
Yeah.
What is the big difference where you're at?
One of the main things that we're sort of like exploring at the minute is it, and I'd be interested in people's views who are listening to the podcast genuinely, and there could be views that would be really helpful in our research actually that we're doing, like to help try and, promote a positive change in the health service, is when you go into the health service, your gender is assumed. So let's just not think about sexuality for a minute, because that's kind of personal, and if we want to share that, but it's difficult because it's like, do we ask your gender? Do we ask your sexuality? When does it become okay to ask that information? But we then got like a double bind problem, because if in the health service is,
sorry, you got to echo, my bad.
Oh, I wondered, I thought, I didn't even recognize my own voice, and I was like, who's that? Somebody else is joining the phone. That's so funny.
My apologies.
Yeah, that was hilarious. But so one of the problems we've got is we don't ask people at point of contact when they come into a mental health service or any health service like general GP or whatever, your doctor practitioner. We don't ask what your sexuality is or what your gender is. And the problem with that is it's then assumed, it's then left up to the medical practitioners to basically just guess or assume and judge your healthcare based on that. So one of the things about the mental health issue is I found for myself was I would turn to different sources of support and different support networks than somebody who is non-LGBT. I would want to be in my community getting that support, but I had to go outside my community for that support. So I had to go to services that are designed just for heteronormative people only. And I don't identify that way. So my that big part of my identity was ignored. And that was, obviously, that's the crux of my mental well-being, isn't it? If people need to have their identity acknowledged to be able to thrive and to feel well, they need to feel like who they are is accepted. And some people might get that acceptance outside of the community, some people might not. It will vary, I guess, for all people, all times. I certainly have friends who are in the, on the LGBT spectrum, but would not go to LGBTQ plus events because they wouldn't feel it's, they don't want to be at those events. So every person has a different need, but the main issue is that we're not identifying that need because we're not even asking. We're not saying, what is your sexuality? What is your gender? Might you need to link in with somebody else or with another practitioner that's sensitive to that?
That's perspective. Right. That's perspective if I ever heard it. And you said you're neurodivergent, so obviously you have a couple other mental disabilities, I'm assuming. What would those be by chance?
Well, my neurodivergency, so obviously Erling syndrome is on the neurodivergent spectrum. So the neurodivergent conditions that are on the spectrum are ADHD, autism, Erling syndrome, dyslexia, dyspraxia. Obviously, it's not exhaustive, so that's not all of them, but they're kind of like the main ones that most people were diagnosed with. I'm awaiting an ADHD assessment. I suspect I have ADHD. I have dyslexia and I have Erling syndrome, and often those kind of conditions come together. It's very rare that somebody doesn't have a comorbid condition, so they don't. It's very rare that one person would have, for example, dyspraxia, but then not have, say, Erling syndrome or dyslexia. It's more common that people would have them together. And then I have a son who is autistic, so he's turned out neurodivergent as well. And then I have disabilities, which are nothing to do with my neurodivergence. So they're separate.
I've never asked you about those. I didn't know that part. Well, let me ask you, when you date, is this something like comes out the first day? How do you feel about the disclosure of these things? Are you telling people like immediately, hey, nice to meet you, I have all these functionalities, or are you just keeping them to yourself, or how have you approached your disabilities when you date?
Yeah, it's been really challenging. Like, I guess like a lot of disabled people I speak to, I just sort of like keep them on the down low. Like, you just don't feel like it's I think what's interesting, just saying about these talks that I do and like raising awareness about neurodiversity and inclusion and disability inclusion all together. And I was mentioning the health service, wasn't I? And what people's experience of that are like. It's a bit like that. It's like, do you want to have to disclose everything or not? There's like a need to know and how much somebody needs to know. And it's a similar thing with dating, isn't it? It's like, how much does that person need to know? But then your disability, I mean, especially now, my disability is even more so impinge so much on my day-to-day functioning and how I am. I mean, I'm in a different position because I've become a disability activist. So in that sense, I couldn't hide, could I? What my disabilities may be or how I speak about disabilities, because I'm bold and I'm putting it out there. But not everybody wants to do that, has the confidence to do that, feels like doing that. So I think my own personal experiences, I know I've kept it on the down low. So I imagine for a lot of people when they're dating, they're probably in that stuck position of thinking, where do I start? Do I tell you that I'm neurodivergent first? Do I tell you that I've got, a physical disability first? Do I tell you that I've got a mental disability first? Like, which one do I share? And you're always kind of thinking like, which is the worst one? There's kind of like a hierarchy system of what you think is like your most challenging disability. And it's never, what I've found is it's never the same for the person you're telling. But I think I've got BlueGlasses, which is a big clue. Like, as soon as somebody sees the BlueGlasses, which is not a bad thing, they start asking questions, but ultimately they're going to find out I'm neurodivergent from asking those questions. And most people don't know what neurodiversity is. So then it starts off a dialogue. And luckily, most people just like go if they've got a problem, if they're not like a very aware person, or they don't want to be with somebody, if they're a bit biased who has disabilities, they'll probably just jump ship at that point.
Well, I think that's the funny one. And I gotta be honest, I find myself in between. I had somebody today tell me I was so easy to talk about some of these things. And I was like, I kind of have to. That's what my whole
Yeah,
brand is, right? Is
that's it.
talking about disabilities, and I'm a spokesman, and that's my whole message. And that's kind of the thread of who I am, right? But
Mm,
I'm not my disabilities in the same sense, right? So
mm.
I do need to tell people I'm deaf, right? And it was funny, I was in the bar today and I told somebody I was deaf, so I took out my hearing aid and showed it to him. And the next guy said, "You're not deaf." And then I showed him my hearing aid and he was, "Oh fuck, you're deaf." And I was like, well, what did you think I meant the first time? Like I said I was deaf. Like, did you think I was bullshitting? Like, well, you talk. Well, yeah, I'm partial deaf. Like, I'm not full deaf, obviously. And work with me here, right? And then on the other side of that, there's the, you don't want to spend 72 minutes explaining everything about autism only for somebody to walk away from you and say thanks for your TED talk, right? So
Yes, exactly.
right. And then the other one is like we talked about this on our recap, is it seems like whenever you say you're autistic or neurodivergent, they're like, so you have Down syndrome. You don't look like you have Down syndrome. And it's like,
Really? I've not heard that one. Okay, that's a new one on me.
it's
Wow.
that's what they think of when you think of autism in America, is they think that you have Down syndrome. And they tell you don't look autistic. Well, there's no look to autism. So that's the only reason why I say that, is you wouldn't tell me I look autistic unless you thought
Well, it's the same with like ADHD, isn't it? Apparently, I don't look like I've got ADHD. So, what does somebody with ADHD look like? And I'll tell you, as a funny part of this, Dante, right? I was like, when I was trying to work it all out, so I was like, so I've suffered with my mental health. So, I have a mental illness. I have several mental illnesses, but I have anxiety and depression as like a symptom of those mental illnesses. And I've had panic attacks and things like that. And you'll know that I use performing to help me sort of deal with those anxieties. It's like putting myself out there in that public domain, as strange as it sounds, actually helps me overcome it. Because if I'm not in a situation where I'm speaking in front of people and I'm in a crowd, I find that harder for my anxiety. And it's just really interesting that I was dealing with my anxiety and I was thinking, no, I think there's something else. It's not just the anxiety. And now I'm exploring the ADHD route because I think that pretty much is where I'm at. And it makes sense with my other neurodiversities. But I put out a shout to my friends on social media going, hey, I think I may have ADHD. Like, anybody got any clues like what the route is for diagnosis or what you think about it? And like half of my friends were like, hey, we all have ADHD. And I was like, oh. I was like, oh, I forgot, like everybody I know is neurodivergent.
everybody around me is special. That's kind of like when we met to make the show. I remember Janejira said she was autistic, and Audra at the time was like, yeah, we're autistic too. And I was like, what do you mean we? And she's like, yeah, remember at school I always knew that, and I didn't. Thanks. Because I had went to high school with her.
Well, my son literally got diagnosed like 2 weeks ago with autism. So it was a pretty big thing, really, pretty big step. So yeah, but the other thing is just in relation to the dating though, because obviously you invited me on here and I was thinking about, like, it got me thinking back to my, dating life. And I actually thought, oh my gosh, I have never actually dated somebody who wasn't neurodivergent. Not even by like intention, it's just happened that way. Like I never even thought, like, sat down and thought about it. I've actually started thinking about past relationships, like, going yeah. So when I met them, they wouldn't have known they were neurodivergent. I maybe didn't even know like that term at that time. But looking back, they've all been diagnosed with their own, neurodivergencies, because obviously when I was younger, there wasn't a diagnostic criteria for ADHD. Dyslexia was barely known. There wasn't a really clear diagnostic process for autism. So I, as a child, couldn't have got diagnosed with these things. It's something I'm having to do now in adulthood.
There's a lot of truth to that. I was talking to somebody today about being a Black man with autism, and how we were portable kids, and you'd spend half your day in class and the other half in a portable, and how when I got to 5th grade, I finally
they're lovely portable.
Yeah, I had a teacher make me stay in and do my homework and during recess, so I ended the
gosh.
And I found out later, if I wouldn't have passed that year, I was going to get sent to special ed. I found that later as an adult, right? And I told somebody once, the reason why I didn't become special ed is because I was smart. and I could get grades. And so if you can pass class,
Same.
they
That was
find
my
a way
experience.
to keep you in school, right?
Yeah, that was my experience too.
And then once I got a teacher that taught me I could do work in class and I could get grades, well, then I just went to school and did my homework and then goofed off at home, right?
Yeah.
And I find that for a lot of us, especially minorities and women, it was a white disease. Like Michael Che joked about that. It was a white male disease. I didn't know women and minorities could get autism, right?
Mm.
So you get to this age where, a lot of, especially Black kids, were diagnosed ADD or ADHD and all that, when really they didn't need the Ritalin, they just needed the support system. And so I think we find a lot of people, like, I think my last long girlfriend I had, Denise, sometimes was, I don't know, maybe I'm Asperger's or autistic. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised. Right?
Yeah. When you start talking about it, like you said, the people you're dating start thinking about it for themselves, or the other way around. So if I've dated a neurodivergent person, then I've started thinking, am I neurodivergent? So either way, if you get into a couple where one of you is or suspects you are, it does kind of like build you up towards thinking about diagnosis, doesn't it?
I think so. And not even just building up to diagnosis, but when people can communicate with you or understand your communication style, and you're like,
yeah.
I communicate a special way. And if you're able to keep track with me, that probably tells me you're a little special too.
Yeah, exactly that.
Right. And then not only that, but I think it's better sometimes to say it up front. Like, I had a woman, I should say, who was training me at my new job to be like a rigger. And we had an awkward interaction where I just couldn't understand what she was asking me, and she was getting frustrated and I was getting frustrated. I was like, I don't know what you want to know right now. Well, if you read this diagram, which would you? I said, that's up. Well, which way's up? And I'm like, why are you doing this right now? I tied the knot, let it go, right? So anyways, the next week we're at a Christmas party, and she sits down, it's kind of flirting with me. I'm pretty sure, right? And she's like, yeah, I remember this is one guy with autism, and I just couldn't get along with him. I tried to date him and this, that, and the other. And I was like, oh, I'm autistic. And she's, I didn't know. I couldn't tell. Why would you be able to tell? You've only had 4 conversations with me, right? But it was a good deterrent to get away from people that you don't want to be around.
Interesting.
I'm finding it's a great disqualifier.
Yeah, that's very true. That is true. Yeah, I've seen that in the
Weed
experience.
out the annoying people.
Right?
Yeah.
Say that again, Jane.
Weed out the annoying people that are like that will like try to explain autism to you as if you don't have it and know how it goes. It's like, why are you explaining to me something that
My own condition
have experienced already? Like, why are you doing that?
Like, Jane, you don't look autistic. We just talked for 72 minutes about dinosaurs. You're not autistic.
Right.
So I was talking to a friend last night at the wrestling, and one of their disabilities, they are autistic, interestingly enough, but they're also blind as well. And they wear glasses, and they have some tinted glasses that they wear, similar to my own. But what was interesting is they were like saying, or people will come up to them and say, well, you don't look blind. And it's like, and I said, it's the same thing as what we're just saying. I've got like a little phrase, but I'll be totally honest, I'm a bit of a coward. I haven't used it yet, but I heard somebody else use it, and I'm really dying to use it, which is when somebody says to you, oh, you don't look whatever, just going, well, you don't look ignorant, but here we are. I just really want to say it.
I'm going to disagree with the whole looking blind thing. I was 5 years old when I met my grandpa. Okay. And my mom tells me he's blind. And he takes us to lunch, and he reads the menu, and he orders his food, and he eats all his food, and he doesn't get any of it on him. And he counts his money out, and he pays the bill. And I'm like 5 years old. My mom's got somewhere to go and asked me if I want to stay with my grandpa. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So we get outside Seattle, and Seattle's known for rain. And in downtown, it's also known for these high curbs with big puddles. And so we're standing at 5th and Union, and my grandpa looks at me, and the light changes color, and he goes, is there a puddle? I looked at him. I thought about how he ate all his food, and he was looking down, and I said, no. And he walked right into that puddle, and he cussed me the fuck out. And guess what? I never did anything like that again. But and the idea of people not looking blind, right? And you laugh about that, but there's a truth to that. I remember I changed my
Yeah, that's why I'm laughing, because it's like a really great example, don't it? It's brilliant, it's that, isn't it?
because depending on how blind they are, deaf like me, right?
Mm.
You
Yeah,
make assumptions, and he's legally blind. He shouldn't be driving. He's blind
yeah,
now, but it depends on what you're interpreting and what you're seeing and what you're expecting. And so I think this is where you break down barriers. Like I remember
yeah.
people used to see my grandpa in his old home and be like, "He's not blind. He gets around fine." I was like, "Well, he's
That's
counted
his own
steps.
home. Yeah.
He knows it's 17 steps or 18 big ones or 16 fast ones, right? He's counted it. He knows what's on the left. He knows on the right. Like it's not that he's not blind. He's just made a mental map and he can turn
Hmm.
in. Now, if you put him in the room and spin him 7 times and don't tell him which way is which, he won't find shit." So it's funny, like you said, people's expectations and what they plan to see or what they're expecting to see based on somebody's disability.
But
And
look at what you said about education. And that was my experience as well, because I was kind of a bright kid and I could focus at some times. And there was some subjects that I was really good at, per se, which this is the best bit. This is the total irony. I was really good at English, at reading and writing, yet I have dyslexia. Yeah, that was the thing that I was most good at. And you know why? Because I really enjoyed reading fantasy. I really enjoyed just being a kid and just reading things that were fantastical and writing stories that were fantastical. And my son, who has autism, does the exact same. He writes these fantastic stories, like so, like he's like mind. His imagination is well beyond mine.
That's how
And
I
that
became a writer.
exactly, this is a thing, isn't it? Though, Jane, that we as neurodivergents, there is actually evidence about this, are very creatively minded. We use our brain in a very different way to a neurotypical brain. So there's them two types of brain, the neurodivergent, the neurotypical. And you probably excelled. And so then it was put in an academic setting, wasn't it? It was like, oh, Emma is good at English. It's like, no, Emma's not good at English. Emma is just hyper focused. Emma has ADHD and she just really likes this writing thing called writing. I don't care about grammar, still don't understand how it works. I don't care about punctuation. I don't care about like all these rules around literature,
You
but I
just
do
got a
like
story
writing,
to
reading.
write and you just got to get it out
Exactly.
there. I
Exactly.
feel that because like I'm doing every hobby under the sun and all my friends at work are just like, well, you do so many things. And I'm like, no, it's actually just the ADHD and I can't pick one task. So I'm like, I'm going to do every hobby ever at the same time. And that's why I'm broke.
That's the same as me. And people don't realize that you have to have like, because I can only focus and you'll be the same for like a certain amount of time on one thing before it bores me. So even though you might have multiple hobbies, you probably do the same as me. Like you might be writing for an hour, then you might draw for an hour, then you might,
Yeah, I found
go
that
see
like
your
the
friend.
1 hour increment system helps me get so much more done. Because if I
Yeah.
don't like switch between tasks and I focus on one thing, it's like I get stressed out. I can't do it.
I'm kind of like the other way around. So like I can like hyper focus for hours like on one thing. It's ridiculous. I could write for like 3 hours, but then it's like it's almost like when I'm done, I'm exhausted and I don't want to see it again for like another 3 days. You know what I mean? So I have to find something else. But I like this breaking it down bit. I'm trying to learn more of that. But definitely, I know my brain doesn't want to focus on one thing for too long. It gets bored.
Yeah.
So I've got to move in between. And sometimes I need like stimulation to do things. Like I need noise on in the background or people around me. And other times I can't bear that. I've got to have like quiet. So it varies how I can work as well. But you put that in a classroom setting, that's a very variable student then, isn't it? One day she can cope with kids around her and do work, another day she can't. It's not that's the neurotypical child, isn't it? That's what we look like when we're at school. How did you find school, Jane?
The only problems I had were on the inside psychologically because my mom didn't know that I was like well, I mean, my mom like knew that I was like autistic and ADHD, but she didn't want to say nothing. She didn't want people to know. She didn't want anybody to treat me
Didn't want you to
differently,
be seen different. Yeah, or treated different.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that was the good way to go because I didn't get treated differently, but at the same time, I didn't know how to deal with myself. So I thought that it was like normal to just suffer through everything. But I had all the adults and like the upper people above me be like, "Oh my God, she's so like brilliant and like talented. She's doing great." But she can't seem to focus. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? I'm focusing so hard all the time. I just happen to be doing 5 other things at the same time because that's all I know how to do. What are you saying? And they keep saying these positive things followed up by a but.
A negative thing, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm just like, why are you being so negative and complimenting me at the same time? Is this how love works? This doesn't make any sense.
That's
I
a
don't get
form
it.
of gaslighting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And but whenever like my math grade was down, that's the only thing my mom would ever focus on, and I would like tie my worth to my grades. I think that's just an Asian thing though. And
No, it
my
isn't, because I've done that. I've done
right,
that.
it's the worst.
And it's
But like
horrible.
yeah, but everyone's like, "Oh, you're just like really artistic," and I was like, "Yeah," but it's like, plot
That's
twist, I'm
worthless in
autistic
the
at the same
Asian
time.
culture. That doesn't mean anything.
Like my mom actually did want me to be like a lawyer or a teacher, a doctor, but she went through those things and she's like, "Well, if you're a lawyer, you probably just argue against your own clients." I'd be like, "Yeah, that's pretty accurate." And she's like, "You can't be a doctor because you're scared of blood," and I was like, "Yeah, it's kind of a deal breaker." And she says, "You can be a teacher," and then I was like, "Well, I hate kids, so I can't see that going well."
That hurts. That hurts a lot. I think for me it was just finding that people really don't understand you when you're masking or when you're trying to fit in. So they see your raw self, or like a lot of people are like, you're so extroverted. And I'm like, sometimes, right? Like
Yeah, to you.
you get
Please, that is. I
again.
get it all the time, Dante. People are like, "Oh, Emma, she's so confident. She's like a complete extrovert, whatever the heck that means. You know, she's so outgoing. You know, these like assumptions and like labels that people are like sticking on me. They decided who I am, and it's like, wait a minute, what I actually am is passionate about something. I'm an activist. You know, I feel strongly. I have strong beliefs about things. So I have strong beliefs about my faith. I have strong beliefs about how people should be treated and how I think disabled people should be treated. And I've got the passion and conviction to stand up and talk about that. Does that mean that I'm an attention seeker or like attention on me, that I'm an extrovert? No, it doesn't actually. Do you know what I mean? It's like the confusion with those things, but it does fit in with what we were saying, like what Jane was saying about the school experience. That's the things I like to read about and write about. I used to love doing religious studies. I used to love writing about history, about, you know, media studies. I used to be interested in all those things. I could have my own views and opinions on. Whether I'm outgoing, whether people judge that as not or confident, like you said, that varies setting to setting depending on who I'm around. If you put me in a room full of neurotypicals and an Excel spreadsheet and told me to be my best self, that ain't happening that day. I'm telling you right now, it's death by PowerPoint for me. BlueGlasses girl who's exiting.
And for me, I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. What do you want? What do you want this color coded? Are we making pie charts? How are we? What
Oh no.
I can make a pivot table about our feelings, right? And as far as dating goes, I think that's where it's a clash, because like people see Suitman and they see me when I have my uniform on and I'm an extrovert. But then if you see me when I don't have my uniform on and I'm in sweats and a hat, I'm probably crying in the corner singing karaoke, right? So it's like one or the other. And I think a lot of people put a label. So when it comes to dating, like, I think that's my new thing, is just like, hey, I'm Asperger's, I'm high anxiety, I've got depression, I got a whole lot of mental issues. So you don't want to deal with that or talk about it? Okay, bye. And
bye. Yeah, just get out of there. Yeah.
they're usually okay with talking with it or being it, are people who are experiencing it or openly know what those things are. And so when they're able, oh, that's no big deal, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Can we just talk now? Oh, great, cool. All right, we're good. We're good.
You save the PowerPoint for like a later date.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They're like, we don't need to go through that now. And I'm like, great, cool. Let me ask you, how is well, I know you have your physical disabilities, you told me, I should say, have gotten a lot worse, or at least did you're walking. But it seems like you're dating somebody, I heard. Ooh, right?
I am, yeah, newsflash, yeah.
So, obviously it hasn't stopped you from dating, but before now, has any of your physical abilities or disabilities been a issue or concern when it comes to your dating life?
No, yeah, yes and no. So basically, how I met the person that I'm dating now, which is really exciting, is actually, I wouldn't say it wasn't related to my disability, but it's definitely part of my identity. Like, we met at a group where only people of our identity would go to. So it was like, how we met was part of me beginning to be more me and making more decisions for myself, if you like. And at the group where we met, there is disabled people there, and it was a space in which I felt safe and felt comfortable. So I think that's the biggest thing that I took from it. I think where my dating life hasn't gone well in the past is I've gone to the general places where people try to, you know, find people to date. So you've gone to the bars or the clubs, or you've done certain activities, but those activities were very much around heteronormative, neurotypical people, which is not me. So I just like stuck out like a sore thumb, and that made, whether I did or didn't stick out, it made me feel uncomfortable, and my behavior was maybe different. And then if I'm not being my true authentic self, I'm thinking, well, like you said, I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't see my authentic self. But the best comes out in me, is what I've noticed, when I'm around people in my community, when I'm around the LGBTI community and around neurodivergent people. That's when you get the best version of me. That's when you see me. So when I was like announcing at the wrestling last night, that is a safe space. It's somewhere I feel comfortable. You're gonna get the best version. Like I say, you take me out, that's like taking a fish out of the water. I can't breathe. I'm just not the same Emma. I'm just not me. And so that was where I met this person that I'm dating now. And because we've got similarities with our identities, I'm dating another disabled person. So they don't have physical disabilities that I have. So like, we're like a team, you know, I support them with theirs, they support me with mine. And so that's been like a real breath of fresh air to like finally meet somebody where it's more equality in the relationship.
Oh, sucker now. She's like, he rubs my nub and I give him psychology while he does it. No. Right. Like, you know, it's funny you say that, because like, I'm kind of finding like the same thing. Like, not that I go to anywhere and hang out where I haven't went to any of these singles meetups for the autistic people around here that I'm a part of, but I'm finding where I'm in spaces where mental health is a focus, or people like are talking about it already, I'm okay, right? When I go to these normal areas where you run into all these normies, like a bar or a restaurant or a club, and I got to make small talk, I just come off as weird. And it even comes like to my jobs, like, oh, you're an asshole, or you're a jerk. No, I'm just giving you a solid answer, right? Like when I was an announcer, somebody's mom wanted to come up to me and be like, you always say my son's stuff wrong. I was like, well, maybe you should talk to the person who gives me his information. She's like, well, that's rude. Not really. I just read what's on the paper. What are you mad at me for, right? I was rude, right? I don't think I was rude at all. Like, maybe you should talk to the coach and make sure he's putting out the right roster, right? And even when it comes to like dating or with women, I find myself not so much getting friend zoned, but challenging the idea that you can go from friends to dating, right? And challenging the idea that you should be friends first before you date. But when I say that, most of these women really aren't planning on dating you. They just want to be the friends, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so there's this gray area, I think, where I'm misinterpreted, and not even so much misinterpreted, but I think they take advantage of how you say things, right?
It's that directness. Like, I've definitely experienced that. And I don't know if that's a neurodivergent thing, an ADHD thing. Sometimes I think it's an ADHD thing. I don't know about you, James, or if it's just a me thing. But I have come to a place where I'm sometimes directing my communications like that, you know, just say like as it is. But it's definitely a British thing as well, isn't it? Variety, where people are like, we talk around the houses, which is really annoying, because
I was just going to say, we take
it?
long in this country. That's why we are so like 20, 30 years behind the Americans. We keep dilly-dallying. Here we go around the Mari bush. It's a headache.
It is. So we don't say things direct. But
you know,
for you, Variety D, as a woman in the UK, am I right in saying if you are bold, if you are direct, people take it as you're aggressive? Like, so it meets what I'm saying.
Don't you hear in South London, they'll say that, oh, you're an aggressive type, aren't you? You're one of those. Yeah. You know, I'm like, one of who? You know, I'm me. I'm sorry, I'm Bray, you know, I'm not one of anything. Because one, I've never fit into any category. But I always get sometimes put into that margin thing of like, oh, but you're one of those type of women, you're those black feisty women from South London, all that attitude.
Yeah,
No,
because
I'm
you
not.
have the issue. That's it. Because you have the issue of race added into that mix. So obviously,
Yes.
me as a white woman, I know we've got some listeners that can't see us. I don't even have that factor, and I want you to know I still get that same attitude. So some of it's to do with your perceived gender, isn't it? Because you're a woman, and some
There's
of
your
it,
gender, your class as well.
yeah.
It's because we're both working class, so it's like, man, it's just hard, but we get through it, we pull through.
I think,
And the thing is, I've had to teach myself, Dante, there's nothing wrong with being direct. I'm still trying to build that confidence, because sometimes, like with my ADHD, I just want to get straight to the point of something. Like I just feel like people are just, I'm like, and I just want to say it, like you said, it's happening. I'm just like, well, actually, that's not my fault. I did this, but you've still got like that tension of going, oh, we're not supposed to speak out like that. We're supposed to like be going, oh, I'm sorry. Did I announce that wrong? And take blame.
Break the glass ceiling. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, what
like,
was I supposed to say? My apologies. I'm
like,
sorry.
oh,
I was
sorry.
trying to do my job with what I was given. You know what I
And
mean?
to me, that's a really like, for me, obviously, like looking to be obviously me born a woman, that's a very gender normative experience for me to have. You know what I mean? That I'm supposed to step back and not be strong and not be bold, not be direct, and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I said something wrong. You know what I mean? And I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody who sees me like that either. I need to be in a relationship where I can speak bold and speak my mind as well. I think that's an important thing when you're dating.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I had a dating experience where it went bad because I said something along those lines. So I had somebody meet me for a date. We're at our local bar. And when I'd went in, I'd forgot my wallet in the car, right? So I went and grabbed my wallet while I was ordering the drinks. And I didn't know the bartender had gave the lady I was with the attitude. But that's how she is, right? And sometimes you go places where you don't get the best service. That's just who they are. And you don't care because it's just who they are, right?
Right.
And so I was with kind of a bougie black girl, right? So we had our date and we're playing dominoes and I'm kicking her ass, right? And talking shit. And she was getting kind of sensitive to the shit talking, which should have been a red flag for me. Like, you asked for this and you talk shit when we got out the car. So now that I'm talking trash while we're playing, you should be okay, right? But anyways, long story short, I put the glasses on the bar and the lady was busy. So I just left them there and went back to my game. And she goes, so what am I? Does this mean I'm supposed to pour another round with attitude? And I said, yes, ma'am, please. And she was like, yeah, I want vodka tonic and Tito's. And she was like, what? I was like, don't, just let it go. And she's like, I want vodka. And let me guess, vodka and tonic with a lemon and this, that, and the other. I know what you want. And they just had a stare off. And she went back, right? Obviously, Variety knows this was a black woman, right?
Yeah, I can just picture this.
Yeah. I was thinking, it's like a black country western movie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Guns at Dawn, isn't it? Like,
Guns at Dawn.
definitely that vibe.
Right? And the next day, we continued playing, whatever, finished the game. And then the next day, or that night, I got a call talking about how she didn't want no dude telling her how to talk or when to talk. And I wasn't doing any of those things. We're at my local bar, and I knew this was going to cause a conflict. So I just asked you, not for my sake, nothing to do with you. Not that I don't think you get to voice your opinion, but I just didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah, makes sense.
I didn't say anything wrong. I didn't say you did. Well, you shouldn't have to put up with that service. And I wouldn't go back to, well, you don't have to. I will. That's my local bar. I go there to sing karaoke and I get free coffee. Like, I don't care how she treats, you know what I mean? And I felt like it was my straightforwardness to basically saying, I don't really care how you feel. I just needed you to avoid this situation because that's what I wanted for my mental health. And she couldn't grasp that. Like, it had nothing to do with right or wrong in that moment. It was just, I don't want to deal with this. Let's just let that go. And I found that, like, I don't know if that's directness or, but sometimes we do things to avoid situations. Sometimes we do things because they're our routine, right? You're in a routine of what you do. You're in a routine of who you're around. And you get around people who don't understand that with you, want to argue with you, and you find yourself fighting on a cliff or a box that really doesn't even fucking matter, right? But at the same point, if this person wanted that to be their last straw, then they probably would have got rid of me 3 months later or for some other odd reason. Or
yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? And that's where I think I'm saying, like, the whole idea of being up front, I think is kind of better. You get rid of those people. And when you get the people around, the people I found like are there and they're supporting mental health, or one of they're talking about mental health days and all this shit. And then I tell them what I'm going through. There's a room of understanding. There's room for empathy. The people that don't get that already, and then you're trying to reteach them what these things are, they're not ready.
It's not our job. It's not our job to reteach them. And there's so many things that you said there that I can like really resonate with me, like the bit about having your own routine and what's good for your mental health. And I think what you were doing there was like self-care, which is really important, you know. And I think, yeah, there's things that I know that I would hold on to and I would do and I would put up with, like you say, that I maybe wouldn't in another situation. And that might confuse somebody I with and might think, well, why has Emma behaved in that way in that situation, but not in this situation? Like she spoke up in that situation, but she's quiet in that situation. Like you were in the bar, I would be the same, because I'd be like, that's a place that I frequent, you know, and for other reasons. So I, you know, go to a lot of different groups and clubs and things like that. And it's like, so I need to be with somebody in life that can come along to those spaces and they can be in those spaces and I can be in spaces with them without you are overstepping each other's mark, isn't it? You know, respecting that they've got spaces they're going. Like I might go in a space with them and not like how somebody spoke to them in that space or the way they've been treated, but I might have to have that conversation privately and I might have to deal with my own feelings about it, because my own feeling is I'm much better at jumping in and defending somebody else and their situation than I am my own. So I might want to jump in and say, hey, don't speak to them like that, or don't do this like that. But actually that might not be what they want me to deal with it. So I've had to learn, like, I can't deal with other people's conflict for them. Do you know what I mean? That's not my job. And plus they might not want to see me in conflict with other people. So then that's helped me sort of find other ways of coping as well.
Well, I love that you said that, because that was kind of my exact thinking. Like, if I went somewhere and you told me not to do something or not, I just wouldn't, out of respect for you. Now, it doesn't mean that what you're saying is right or wrong. Maybe I just don't want to deal with how the other person's going to react or what's going to come next, or you can still be right and I might still not want to deal with it right now.
You just might not be in that mental space right at that moment to deal with a conflict. You know what I mean? You might be like, just here right and now, I can't deal with this. You know what I mean? And it can be the smallest of things. You could just be at like a checkout counter. I know I've been at one before, and like just the smallest of things. I'm like, I'm just leaving, just palm my things down, just walk out. You know?
That was one of the things that I remember when I first met my ex. She was understanding of those things. And then later it turned into those were things she was holding against me. So it was, I do think of you because I don't want you to go here or go there because you're going to be this way or you're going to be that way. And I was, no, I won't.
So then assuming how you're going to be in the space, right? I'm giving you the opportunity to go in the space in the first place, you know, which that's when you get to a point where somebody's using your disabilities against you, isn't it? Which is like the worst experience. Oh, I'm just doing it in your interest. That's like, so for example, my physical disabilities that I have at the moment, which are lifelong ones I'll have forever. At the moment, one thing that might change is at the moment I can't walk upstairs, right? I can't go up and downstairs. Now my ability to do that may come back after a lot of physio, which is probably going to take a good while, a year, 2 years maybe. So let's say, for example, in a couple of years' time, I can then go upstairs. That's like in the interim, somebody saying to me, well, I didn't take you there because I had steps and I just know you can't go upstairs. I'm there. Do you know what I mean? Rather than say, oh, well, we could go to somewhere else, you know, or on this occasion you can't go, or there's a couple of stairs and I can help, you know, that is the thing about, you know, if you're in a coupling where one or both of you are disabled, you're supposed to be not just accommodating each other, you're supposed to be thinking as a couple, aren't you, what you can do together and how you can support one another. It shouldn't be, oh, I was doing that in your best interest, like by not taking you somewhere. It's like, no, you were excluding me. We're talking about inclusion, aren't we? You were excluding me, and you know you were.
I remember we'd went to like an outdoor little play, and everybody kept sitting by us, and I was getting mad. And she's like, "Well, the concert we're going to go to the next day is going to be similar, so I'm pretty sure you don't want to go." And I was like, "No, it's a whole lot bigger space, and yeah, there's bigger people, but there's more space, right?"
And I'd be better in that. I'd be the same, Dante. I'd be better in that space, but not the previous one.
Right. And so it just depends on how much space we got, and can I at least.
But they're second guessing what you need, aren't they? This is what starts happening when you've got a disability, and especially if it's like a neurodivergency or what we're talking about, more mental health, because people can't see it. It's the hidden disability thing again. They start second guessing based on past experience you've had, what might pop up, and they start getting anxious about it more than you. They're like, oh, what if you can't cope in this space? But I've got people around me, friends and family around me, who are just great, and like they give me opportunities. They'll ask me, you know what I mean, and say, what do you think, Emma? And I think what can happen is really helpful conversations like that when you're with your partner, whether it be friends, not even a romantic coupling, you know, you can have a conversation about it and say, like, I know my partner's helped me already through loads of anxieties. Like, I've gone, we went to the theatre a few weeks ago. I've not been to the theatre in years, Dante, because I can't do big crowds as well. And I was like, I really don't think I could do it. I really don't think I could do it. And then we were like, planned it to the finite degree. I was like, right, I'm going to take my power chair, because one thing I've noticed when I'm out in my power chair, wheelchair, some people call it, is that my anxiety is a little bit less, because people don't come and try to interact with me. They don't touch me because I'm at a lower height, and it's actually really great for my anxiety. And then the other thing we did is we went in, they do a call out, don't the theatre say 5 minutes before the show starts, and it literally was a call out with 1 minute to the show starting, and then I just reeled up to the door, so like the last person in, so I didn't have to see anybody, and like the theatre was already in the darkness. But when the lights came up and I could see the sea of people, I nearly had a panic attack. I was like, oh, what have I done? But I did that with the support of the partner, but I was upfront about what my needs were, what I thought I could manage. But the point is, at any point I could have turned around and said, and I have done, I'm not doing this, or walk away. So that when you're talking about your ex just saying up front, I don't think you should do this, that's taken away your autonomy. They should have said, come with me, and had a plan of how you're going to exit that place if it's not working for you. You know what I mean? That's what you expect of a loving and supportive partner, and say, listen, if you need to go, I'll call you a cab, you know, whatever you need to do, or if you just need to go out. And that's how it should be. When I do my talks, if I'm doing a workshop, that's how I lead the workshop. I'll say, whoever's in the room, if you need to get up and walk around, if you need to fidget, if you need to draw, if you need to leave at any point, if you hear something that distresses you, you need to talk to somebody afterwards, you know, you've got to put those things out there.
That was one of the things I was telling my buddy, I think today even, was like, I think the difference between love and commitment is when you show the empathy, you do the planning, versus commitment is just being there, just being around, right? And I think that's the difference in your disability. If somebody loves your disability, they'll show it love, they'll empathize, they'll work with you. If they're not, they'll just be around. And I think being with disabilities, you need love, not commitment, right? You need both, but you have to have love, right?
There's a big difference, like, than just being around. It's like, well, I'm there for you. What's the problem? It's like, well, there's different types of being there for somebody. Like my mental health affects me sometimes. I can have an outburst. I can say or do things that like really out of character, not be myself. And I feel really shit about that and don't like that aspect of my mental health. But that's just how it is. You know, like, I'm not saying that it's not going to change, because it will do. And I'm sure, like, as I process things differently in the future, or get other types of support, that will change. But people with ADHD do have emotional dysregulation. That is part of the condition, right? And that's in addition to me already having a diagnosed mental illness as well. So, like, let's be real, it's not easy maybe trying to date, trying to have a healthy relationship whilst you have disabilities, whether they be mental or physical, you know, and they both come with differences, you know, like the physical health is very different to like my mental health. But if I have that outburst, like you say, yeah, I am actually, and what is scary, you're relying on love, aren't you? Relying on that person's love and goodwill and patience and forgiveness and understanding to go, should I have withstood that behavior? Do you know what I mean? Is it toxic, or is it part of their
or not even
well-being?
withstood it? I would say interact. Should I even respond, right? Like, I think my biggest one is when I put out the boundaries that I'm not talking, that just means I'm not talking. That doesn't mean keep talking shit to me or something like that. Or like when I used to get wound up when I first met my ex, like I told somebody, we were in real love. I know that. I know when it changed. I can kind of figure it out when it went bad, right? But we were in real love. I'd be having a bad day, and I'd get a voice message out of nowhere in a soft tone saying, "Hey, honey, breathe. I know you're feeling bad. I love you. You're going to see me in 2 weeks. Just let it go." And that did great for me. I don't know why I stopped getting those messages, or when I stopped getting that love, right? The commitment is, we'll call me when you feel better, or I'm calling, or I'm texting. That's not the love, right? And I think that's what we strive for, we look for, we need, but I think we're not committed to ourselves sometimes, right? to find that. And I think that's the hard part. I think I'm trying to express or talk about when we talk about identifying or at least being honest about these disabilities up front. So that way you can get rid of those people, right? We can get rid of those naysayers, the ones that don't want to put in the effort, or at least find out if they're going to continually do it, right? Like you said, it's great to have your partner who's got a disability, because they know they need some assurance and accommodations at times. So they're going to give you the assurance and accommodations that you need, right?
And the thing he's saying about love is, like, you know, love doesn't run out. Do you know what I mean? Like, I get my love from other sources as well. You guys know that I've got quite a strong faith, you know what I mean? So you know that I follow Jesus Christ. So to me, I've got that love coming from other sources as well as like people. But I think the thing is, like, what Jesus taught me is that love doesn't, like, it doesn't run out. So when you're in a relationship like that and the love does run out, because it does, doesn't it? Like what happened with yourself, and it's just changed to, oh yeah, just call me when you're better. It's kind of like, this is why it's important to be upfront, you know, and really get all your disabilities out there, because how long can somebody withstand it? You know, because you can fall in love, but then you can fall out of love, can't you? Because they stop loving, they forget like who you are and just start seeing your disabilities first. That's like what you're describing to me.
I wouldn't even say that sometimes, because I'll take it one step further. I was being told, I don't know if I'm enough for you. You seem like you're needy. You seem like you're a lot. And I was, no, you're enough. So I think sometimes we want love so bad that we avoid or ignore people telling us they can't love us enough.
Exactly. Oh yeah, I've been there.
Telling us they don't have our style of love, or they don't have the patience, or
they just have that capacity. And you know what? And you know what I think about people like that? So I've had those relationships in the past. Like, you know, I've had people that have said that, and I always think needy is a real red flag now. If anybody ever says you're needy, I don't care who it is. It could be your closest relative. Don't care who it is. That is it. I'm just like, right, I'm out of there, because I'm not needy. I have needs. I'm a human being, and it's like, and if you can't relate to that, then, you know, this is not going to work out, you know. So I'm really like very strong on that now about this whole like needy business. But I think the thing is that love and empathy and that understanding is giving it to yourself first. And if somebody hasn't got that capacity, this is what I think back now, Dante, when I look at those past relationships, they have enough capacity though to still be in a relationship with somebody else. Like you say, it just wasn't me. Do you know what I mean? Like, they can probably still have a successful relationship with somebody else, because everybody meets each other at their levels, don't they? So maybe the amount of love I give out, or they felt overwhelmed, they couldn't accept that amount, it didn't match up. That doesn't mean that they can't be in a relationship with someone else. Don't mean I can't be in a relationship with somebody else. But at the time, you kind of desperately cling on to it, doing like, oh no, you are enough. No, you can meet all my needs. I'm sure it'll all work out. When really, like, you're thinking, you don't realize in the moment you are sacrificing something of yourself when you do that. And
only
it's
that,
not,
but you're lying, and then
you're lying to
you're lying to them.
Yeah. And there's no need, because they can, exactly, and they can, you know, they know that they can't, and you know that you can't, but you're struggling to admit that to yourselves and to each other, and to actually make that final break. But when you do,
commitment, not because you're in love. And that's what that was my explanation this morning, was like, that's the difference between commitment and love. When you start
some people
because you're together.
You know what it is, Dante? You've hit the nail on the head. What it is, I think this sums it up, is sometimes people just so badly want to be in the relationship that they put that commitment bit first, not the love. They don't like get to know each other in like that loving way. They're just like commitment. It's like, I'll prove to you. I know I've done that. You know, that type of relationship where it ends, where it's like, no, you are good enough. Because I'm like, I'll prove to you I can be the best partner ever. I'll ring you every day and I'll stay by you, and you can throw loads of shit at me and I'll just keep going and I'll still be here in a year's time. And it's like, who's actually benefiting from that?
I got a lady friend who I told before I met my ex, we can't be together. We're not on the same plane. I'm just not interested in like loving you. I don't feel that. And that was one of the things I talked about when my friend said, what's the difference between love and commitment? I said, well, I love my ex-girlfriend. I do not love the girl who's my friend, right? And I put her in a box. I said, we can't fool around no more. I don't want to do that. Like, I'm not cool. It's just sex. That's all it ever is going to be. I know you may love me, but I don't love you. And I think that's the hardest thing to do, is be honest, right? And not only say that to that person, but then follow up on it, right? Like, and that's where I think it's both people's fault. It's my fault for not listening to her, but then it's also her fault for just being like, no, I know better. I am not enough. I can tell this, right? And so
Mhm.
I think that's where it's the honesty, the idea of love. Like you said, we wanted to be in a relationship. We wanted to love each other more than we wanted to be, wanted each other anymore, right? And I think
Yeah,
that's where it burns out, is when the idea of us is bigger than the idea of me loving you.
yeah, yeah. And loving that person is not always pretty. That's what I'm trying to get at, especially if you're in love with somebody who has disabilities. You know, it's not pretty. There's going to be ugly moments, going to be ugly times. You know what I mean? I think there's just too much of a fantasy around what love is. And obviously, a romantic love is different to your platonic love with your friends, like you're saying. And I think that's the problem, isn't it? It's become such like a throwaway culture around love. You know, we just have Valentine's Day and it's all the cards and the flowers and the hoo-ha. It's like, I love you, I love you. But actually, the kind of love that we're talking about, a love that is about acknowledging somebody's challenges and differences, you know, that they might communicate different to you or to them, or might because one thing I wanted to bring up earlier, what we've not mentioned, is it's wonderful dating a disabled person. With me having disabilities, it's been the best thing for me. But there can also be challenges with that, because then it's a bit like what Jane was saying earlier, somebody telling you what your conditions are. So if I know myself, if say I've dated somebody else who say depression, they thought they understand everything about my depression because they have depression. Well, no, because you're not Emma. So you don't understand what I'm experiencing. It's my brain that's giving me my negative thoughts with my negative feelings about it. So we start to lose the fact that, you know, there's a person there. That's what you're talking about, isn't it? It's like somebody's not in Dante's mind and in Dante's experience. They don't know what you can deal with from one day to the next. But we don't stop and ask. We just seem to just like plow through, don't we? We're just like, oh, well, I understand exactly how their disability is impacting on them. But if we just took a little moment, you know, that's where the love and patience is, isn't it? The real love and patience, just to say, well, you know, and just be honest and just say, I actually don't know. You know, and that's what I mean by it's not always pretty.
And I think I'll end on this because that's a great point. I think at this point in life, a lot of people don't understand that if you're going to date, especially somebody with disabilities, the good thing about people with disabilities is we don't do red flags, because there's no such thing as red flags with people with disabilities. It's, are we going to work through it or are we not? And I
Yeah.
think normies so many times think that love's supposed to be perfect and everything's going to be okay. So we see a red flag, which is really an opportunity to communicate and understand, and we run.
Yeah.
Like, what is a red flag? Well, you know, red flags on dates are different. Don't get me wrong. You pick up a girl and she's got 7 guys outside her house. That's not a red flag. That's a stop sign, right? The idea of red flags, oh, I didn't like how he talked to me one time. Well, did you talk through it? Did you ask him what he was thinking? Did you ask him his verbiage? Was he really rude? Did he do it again? Was it an accident, right? No, I just ghosted him and never talked to him again. Well, what did he say? He said a certain word I didn't like or said something the wrong way. Are you sure you heard it right? Did he understood what he said? Does he know how he offended you, right? He called me a female, and a female is an adjective. So any guy who calls me a female is a pig. Not all guys understand that that's how women feel about that word female. I'm just using this
Yeah.
as an example because I know
Yeah.
someone who does, right? So these are all things that you could call red flags and run, or you could take the time and understand. The greatest thing, hardest thing about having disabilities is our disabilities to a lot of people, especially normies, are red flags. And so
Yeah.
if what you're doing is leaving people once you see a red flag, that probably means you're not giving people with disabilities, especially hidden ones, a chance. And we
Yeah.
will end on that. Tell us a little bit about us, where we can find you, what you got going on, there, Miss BlueGlasses girl. Tell them about you before.
Well, I would love for you to follow me on Instagram, BlueGlasses Girl. Somebody's fine, and Twitter as well. Same, BlueGlasses Girl UK for Twitter, because they wouldn't let me have BlueGlasses Boo, so I had to add the UK on there. So it's not BlueGlasses Girl; it's just BlueGlasses UK. Instagram, BlueGlasses Girl. Please follow me. My social media. Oh, I'm on Facebook, so you can follow me at BlueGlasses Girl Creative, and there you'll see what I'm up to, which is I'm working in the UK's first wrestling church, and it's just as it sounds. We have live pro wrestling and a church service combined with metal music, and it's awesome. So yeah, what I'm doing at the moment, and obviously my disability activism and lots of things and talks in those areas. So all sorts going on at the moment.
Check out BlueGlasses, girl, and give it up for BDSM Bear and the potato chip enthusiast. We finally got our potato chip blog going.
Finally.
And I've been your host with the most, Suitman. You can also hear us on the radio in Oregon, 98.3 KMWV on Fridays from 8 to 9 p.m. So check that out if you're in the mid-Willamette Valley, right? Have a great day, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to Dating with Disabilities.